doesn't matter so much for those ones. Okay, last week we did a contact wrist tape job, which prevents both flexion and extension. The ones that we're going to look at this week will prevent movement of the wrist in either flexion or extension, but allow a full range of motion in the other one. So those are the criteria when we come to marking the different wrist tape jobs. If you have a contact wrist, then it has to restrict movement in both directions. If it doesn't, you lose marks for it. On the one I'm going to do today, if I did a tape job for hyperextension where the fan is on the palmar side of the hand, then it would restrict movement and extension, but they must have full flexion. To make sure that you have a full range of motion in either direction, you want to put your anchors above the wrist crease, because if you put tape in the wrist crease, it's going to bind and restrict the movement. So just move the strips up a little bit to where the ulnar styloid process is, and that won't be a problem. Then we need to also put, where did I start? We also need to start our anchors on the top of the hand. We want to get them up as high as possible, and again, this would, for an athlete, be sprayed to make sure that it sticks. I'm not going to spray her. And because I'm starting and stopping on the back of the fan, I'm going to put the fan on the palmar side, so this would be to restrict extension. I could sort of take a measurement and build a little fan on the table the way I've done with other ones, but it's actually easier to do it on the hand this time. It's very short and it's easy to get the length wrong, and then it's not very effective. So the way to do it when you're actually building it on the arm or hand is to put the pieces from, remember how we want that fan to be right out from halfway around to halfway around, and same here. So I just start my tape out there and get a length, tear it off, and then make sure that her hand is in neutral position or just slightly flexed. Put tension, so I'm pulling on the tape, and put it down halfway around her arm. So I know I've got this in position, and then I'll do exactly the same on the other side. Put one right over on the side of the hand and right to the side of the arm. And again, put some tension on that tape. The tension does more just to pull the superficial skin so it doesn't give when you go into extension. And once I've got those two on, all I do is fill it in with as many strips. You've got some great big huge human, you might want to use 4 more strips. On a hand this size, probably 2 more strips is going to do it. And again, lay it in. Make sure that your fan material goes right up to the edge of the anchoring material at both ends. And once you've got it on here, make sure you give it a good squeeze, and then we just have to anchor it off again. And don't put any tension on this tape at all. There's no need to. You could get them to spread their fingers if you want to make sure that there's no compression on the tendons that might restrict movement. When I'm going around the hand, you notice that I keep pressing as I work my way around the hand like that. And that serves to kind of spread the metacarpal bones as I'm going along, so I don't wind up squeezing the metacarpal bones together and restricting movement. So as I move the tape around, I just kind of squeeze in behind it and make sure that there's lots of room for the hand. So a tape job like this then should allow her 90 degrees of flexion, but will restrict extension. And if she had injured her hand in rolling it under or hyperflexion, then I would start and stop on the palmar side, build the fan on the dorsal side of her hand, and that would restrict movement in flexion. When you're doing one to prevent hyperflexion, you would be starting and stopping your anchors on the palm, but remember that you have to always finish on the back. So when you're anchoring off on top, you would start on the palmar side, but instead of finishing on the palmar side, just keep going and finish on the back, because you'll always finish on the back. So on the exam, you may get a card that says wrist hyperflexion or wrist hyperextension, and you would build one with the appropriate fan. Okay, the next tape job is called a contact thumb. And this is really good for people that are in collision sports. It's also really, really good for skiers that have injured their thumb with a pole strap injury. Getting ulnar collateral ruptures is really common for skiers, and sprains of the carpal, metacarpal joint, as well as the metacarpal phalangeal joint are common. This is an excellent tape job because they can wear a glove or a mitt with this one. Our anchor on the wrist this time is going to be up tight to the base of the thumb. Yeah, I'm just going to put a single strap on. So I'm getting this one up tight. You know, it might affect flexion, extension a little bit, but it's not a big deal, especially in the collision sport. You know, if it's a sport like volleyball, I wouldn't use this tape job because they require full range of motion and extension in order to be able to set properly. So here's my wrist anchor. The anchor for the hand, I'm going to be putting straps to support the thumb in this direction. And I would like my anchor, anywhere in the body really, to be as close to 90 degrees to my straps as possible. That means I want the anchor here and that way, not around the hand up here. So I would put my hand anchor, I would start, I might even use a slightly narrower piece of tape for a small hand, but I would start down here by the pisiform bone, hook it onto the wrist anchor, and then come through the web space and go right back down to the ulnar side, the ulnar corner of the hand wrist again, and attach it onto the anchor. So now I can put my strips right over the top, and it has good anchoring material. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start here and work my way up the thumb. And I want to make sure that my strips start right at the far edge of the anchoring material. Use all your anchoring material where you start and take it right to the far edge where you finish. And I'm pulling on this. I'm putting a lot of pressure on this tape when I lay it down. And I'm just going to half overlap this. You kind of have to change the angle a lot. There's a change in angle right here, and then there's a change in angle there. There's a lot of changes, so your tape, you're going to have to fiddle with the direction of your tape to make sure it doesn't get all wrinkly, but it's quite possible to do it. This one is at quite a different angle than the first one I put on, and eventually it will all fill in. Now, as I get to the MCP joint, it's going to become really, really important for the athlete to fix her thumb in a position and lock it there. She has to resist the pressure of my tape when I put it on. Otherwise, if she doesn't, when I put these straps down, I'm going to pull her thumb so that she winds up with a paddle. Good for swimming, but not good for anything else in athletics. So she has got to lock it up here and really resist when I'm pulling these straps over top of it. And I want her to come up as far as she can without causing any pain. Okay, because I'm going to pull it down when I finish this tape job off. It's going to pull down a little bit. So I want, and then probably a functional position would be to bend that IP joint a bit like this. Relax this one. There you go. And just keep that one nice and stiff. So now I'll continue on my merry way here. And I just keep working up towards the IP joint. Quite a direction change there on her hand. Every hand is different, just gotta go with it. And a little bit further, I think. Yep. She's got quite a short thumb, so I'm gonna be able to get quite close to her IP joint.
Is that better?
Well, it is and it isn't. I'll explain that in a minute, but I want to get it up so that I have a little tunnel in here where the tape comes up the side, so that there's a little hole in here, but the next thing I'm going to do is tuck this in, and that tends to pull the thumb down a little bit. So I can't have it out too far or I'm really going to restrict the position of her thumb. So that's it. Now I'm going to anchor off, and I just start with the hand anchor first this time so I can make sure that I anchor it off around the wrist. And that's not going to go, so I'll just finish on the back. So, and give your tape jobs a good little squish. Make sure it's tight. So, this, as you can see with all these straps on here, it really protects the carpal-metacarpal joint, the metacarpal-phalangeal joint. It unfortunately compromises the IP joint of the thumb. And if you're in something like rugby or hopefully you wouldn't play in the summertime some kind of flag football with fishnet jerseys or some stupid thing like that, which causes ruptured tendons and dislocated fingers. But if you get the thumb caught in something, there is the possibility of hyperextending it and dislocating the IP joint of the thumb, because the rest of the finger, sorry, it's not a finger, it's a thumb. The rest of the thumb is held really, really firmly, and then bingo, you can dislocate it quite easily. So that's the weak part. The good news is, though, you can wear a glove or a mitt, and that's why it's particularly good for skiers. If you get this tape job in the exam and you want to get it marked, we'll come over and grab the thumb and try and rip her thumb off her hand. And if we can, you fail. She goes to the hospital. So you want to make sure that these strips are really, really firm and that there is no shadows in here. It's not because the shadows are going to swell and cut the skin. It just means if you've got shadows, you don't have enough protection on this thing. You haven't got enough tape on it. So you want to make sure that your overlaps are small enough so that you don't get shadowing in them. And that's the contact thumb. So that's tape job for one for the thumb, one for two for the wrist. Now next week. Next week we're going to do another one for the thumb, but whoa. Before we do, I'm just going to show you another tape job using elastic tape. This one isn't examinable, but it's the best tape job. It is by far the most comfortable, and it gives lots of support. It's just that it's more expensive, and people don't have a lot of money sometimes for their medical kit, so trainer's tape is relatively cheap. So you just take a pair of scissors and snip a little hole, and then open this hole up a little bit, and then I'm just going to slide her thumb through the hole, and then I'm going to wrap her wrist and her thumb using a spica. And spicas are figure eights. I talked about spicas when you're wrapping the waist and you go around the waist, around the leg, around the waist, around the leg. This one, I'm going around the wrist this way, and then I just go around the thumb, around the wrist, around the thumb, around the wrist, making a figure eight. So, and I'm going to pull this tape out. I'm going to pull it into a stretched position and apply it. It's not going to cut off her circulation. But I don't want a whole lot of give in this stuff. So go around the wrist, change that angle a bit. And around her thumb, and around the wrist, and around the thumb. Around the wrist and tear it off, finish on the back. Then I have to make sure that the end doesn't come unraveled on this. It's also because we can get rolling up of the elastic tape on the thumb, it's always a good idea just to run a narrow piece of tape, a little bit more than half a width. And I can start it on the end here because I want to hold that down, and then just wrap it around the thumb. And when I finish over here, I've got trainer's tape over the whole of that end, and I've also got it around the thumb here, so that kind of unravel. And this is going to provide restriction in both directions and lots of support for the thumb, and it's way more comfortable. Yeah, it's way better, but it's more expensive. So yeah. Can you do this one? No, because it doesn't have a name, so we can't put it on a card. Yeah, you get a fair amount. I mean, it's not. I'm not going to try and rip her thumb off because that would be painful. See, I can get it back into that position. So it's for a minor sprain of the thumb, or it's pretty good for wrist as well. As you can see, it limits movement in both directions. But it's not for a heavy sprain. If somebody had a subacute, you know, within 72 hours of spraining their thumb, I would use a contact thumb gel because that's going to protect it.
And so, like, what I meant was, like, if we get into one of those tape jobs, like, of course, all those tape jobs have a name, but instead of doing one of those tape jobs, if we just do this one as a replacement for one of those.
This is not one of the eligible tape jobs for the exam, let me put it that way. the tape jobs. You have a list of the 12 tape jobs that you'll be examined on. This is not one of them, and it isn't a substitute because it does not fulfill the requirements of the other tape jobs. This does not give enough restriction for a contact wrist, and it doesn't give enough restriction on the thumb for a bona fide acute thumb injury. But it is good for minor sprains of wrist or thumb.